Women in WWE are frustrated with their WrestleMania plans. Some other WrestleMania plans are still up in the air. Tempest review of AEW Dynamite and more. I'm Saeed Nyangi, and today's Saeed Day, and it is the WrestleTalk news.
Support WrestleTalk!
Anyone who's watching WWE TV in the old Vince McMahon era will tell you things are so much better now. Storylines are better. Characters are better. The overall presentation is better. Well, at least for the men. Since Triple H took over the creative reins of WWE, there have been two common feelings online. 5 matches is not enough for a PPV, and there's not the same amount of focus on the women's division as there is the men's. Case in point, this year's men's Royal Rumble had several multifaceted stories going into it, with plenty of potential winners, and the women had around 3 people announced for it. Charlotte Flair wins, LOL. And according to Sean Ross Sapp, it's not just the online WWE fandom that feels this way. He said on the most recent episode of The Hump, I've spoken with plenty of women in WWE who are frustrated about the booking of the women. He talked about a female talent from WWE reaching out to him to ask if he could use his sources to find out if she was listed internally as a babyface or heel, essentially saying she had no idea what her character or direction was. As it pertains to WrestleMania, we currently have Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair announced for the WWE Women's Championship, and either Rhea Ripley or Io Sky defending the Women's World Heavyweight Championship against the winner of next weekend's Elimination Chamber. The current betting odds have Bianca Belair as the winner of that. Belair is also one half of the tag team champions with Naomi, putting their titles on the line next Monday against Judgment Day. And those tag matches appear to be a bone of contention. As SRS added, I know there have been some Mania pitches that have been rejected because token tag matches are not something they want to do. He added, there's a lot of people who have been parked. While he doesn't say this is necessarily about Natalya or that it's Natalya he's spoken to about these frustrations, he notes that Natalya was re-signed to WWE late last year, which was reportedly a very lucrative contract. This was because, according to Sean Ross Sapp, WWE wanted to keep her. However, she's not been featured on Raw since last December and had an unmemorable Royal Rumble. The plans that SRS says were in place have not come to fruition. He concludes, a lot of the men not only have one thing going on, they've got a lot of things going on, and that's just not the way it's been for the women. I don't know if it's a Triple H thing or what. SRS does note, however, this is not a WWE creative frustrations on the level of Seth Rollins versus The Fiend from 2019 or the 2022 Royal Rumble, just frustrations with the WrestleMania plans and build. And according to WrestleVotes, some of those plans are still being worked on. They claim on their backstage Q&A show that WWE now have Solo Sikoa versus Jacob Fatu as a planned match, and add that they don't think Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio will be happening despite the online speculation. Instead, they say Balor could face AJ Styles at WrestleMania, but that all depends on whether or not Styles will be facing Braun Breaker. Yeah, the undercard for WrestleMania 41 is still being worked on, and that there is a lot of shuffling is still going on there. Now, before we throw to the list making, the Survivor Series hosting, fact checking, beautiful son of a gun. You should see his blue eyes. You get lost in it. Tempest, come here, bud. Come here, darling. Come here, buddy. Now, before we throw to him, I got some notes. Before we get into Tempest's review of AEW Dynamite, here's a clip from the most recent list where he and Luke count down the 10 best Elimination Chamber performances. And of course, the camera goes black.
Number 10, Shayna Baszler, 2020. Now, we'd start like this is a difficult one to place because this is a legendary performance, and this is why the performance really is the operative word of this title, because this is a bad chamber match.
Well, we did the live reactions to this, and yeah, our live audience who was watching us hated this match. I mean, the crowd there didn't love it much either.
No. And it's because this is newly debuted Shayna Baszler, so still a lot of aura. She's got, a lot of presence to her. She's not been ruined yet. And she goes in and eliminates the entire field of Natalya, Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, Sarah Logan, and Asuka. But the problem is, she came out about one spot before she should, because if they had just swapped the order here, there would have been about 4 minutes less of just standing around and doing nothing.
That's it. There's a lot of stall. Like, it's not stalling, because stalling is what a heel would do when they're not getting in the ring. But this is just standing around.
It's just waiting.
And the live crowd just get bored by it.
Hello, I'm Tempest, and I'm very jealous of one Tegan Verhall for being in attendance for this show. Love her, and love Survival Series where she wins. Go watch that. I am Tempest, this is my review of Dynamite in about 5 minutes. We are in the desert, and we indeed start off hot as MJF and Hangman Page went face to face in the long line of defining promo segments of MJF's AEW career. We have a new addition to the very top tier. Everything we have been waiting for happened right here. Hangman and MJF exploiting the other's insecurities, both playing to their real and kayfabe strengths. MJF showing how much not winning over the fans' adoration has affected him. Hangman showing what Christopher Daniels' retirement has meant to him. Nothing I could say would do this segment justice. Even after MJF spit in Hangman's face for Hangman saying that he is real and MJF is happy playing the villain, Christopher Daniels arrived to tell Hangman that this is what he was fighting for, to round out a perfect piece of pro wrestling television. A lot of times, heightened expectations yield disappointing results in wrestling, but every now and then, you get a segment like this that surpasses even the highest of hopes. Also, Hangman Page is the best character in wrestling, in case you needed a reminder. The Undisputed Kingdom was backstage and all said that Roderick Strong would beat Orange Cassidy tonight, and honestly, the most notable thing about this segment was that they acknowledged the existence of the conglomeration. The Patriarchy then took on the Ops with their brand new music, and the story of this match was Christian doing everything he could to avoid physicality, only tagging in when his unit had the advantage. Eventually, a hot tag to Hook turned the tide as Samoa Joe wiped out Christian, and we got an awesome finish as Hook caught Nick Wayne mid-Wayne's World in the Red Rum. I don't know how much gas I have left in the tank to care about this little feud, probably just enough to get excited for a Christian versus Samoa Joe singles match, but this was a very fun trios match, further helped by yet another hot crowd. Chris Jericho laid out the challenge to Bandito for an ROH Championship match on Collision and said people are getting too comfortable around Chris Funkin' Jericho. Nothing cooler or more intimidating than self-imposed censorship. Powerhouse Hobbs then took on Big Bill in a street fight. Crowd brawling and weapons galore filled the early portion of this match, but everything changed when Large William landed a shot to the head of Hobbs with a wrench. The blood rushing down the face of Hobbs gave him the vulnerability he needed as an ass kicker in this match, even if it wouldn't keep him down for long, as Hobbs would fire up, choke slam Brian Key through a table, hit Big Bill with the brick-loaded backpack, and finally throwing Big Bill through a barbed wire table. Bill was ensnared in the barbed wire and couldn't beat the 10 count, giving Hobbs the win via knockout in another very fun match that added a lot of variety to this show. I don't have the time to go through frame by frame of every crowd brawling section in this show, but I would very much appreciate it if somebody would clip out a picture of Tegan in attendance so that I could send it to her. It would make her day. Lance Archer and Brian Cage were interviewed backstage, and they said they would go face to face with the Hurt Syndicate on Collision. Timeless Toni Storm addressed the crowd next, and with the spotlight solely on her, told Mariah May that she was proud of her. She made lots of dick jokes about her small package, but made it clear that Mariah was in her rear view mirror, and she wants to take on the best women in wrestling, whether it be Willow or Chris Stat or Wendy Richter, because God is a woman and her name is timeless. Your enjoyment of this will depend on how much Toni Storm resonates with you, but I would be lying if I said I didn't start getting chills by the time Toni reached the climax of her promo. I probably would have liked someone to make an interruption to signify where we're going next, and I really would have bloody liked it if it was Jamie Hayter, but I know we'll get there, and this is week 1 of Toni's title reign, so I can be patient. Besides, is time even real when the champ is timeless? We got a Gabe Kidd highlight package because the madman himself is going to be on Collision this week. Best believe I'm tuning in for that one. Former Survival Series contestant Gabe Kidd. Much love, even if he scared the shit out of me. Go watch that episode of Survival Series. They try and name every single Bullet Club member. too sweet. Willow Nightingale's interview was once again interrupted by a Death Riders beatdown as Jon Moxley held the show hostage, saying he is the champion of the world and he owns AEW. He said he nearly popped Adam Copeland's head off of his body, and at Revolution he will finish the job. Jay White and Copeland ran off all the Death Riders, and Cope said over the next few weeks he will take out the Death Riders one by one until all that's left at Revolution is he and Mox one-on-one. Am I crazy for thinking that the Death Riders stuff hasn't been that bad as of late? Like, it hasn't been amazing, and I would still like a different program to be for the world title, but I don't dread their segments like I used to. I think this run of excellent AEW shows over the last few weeks has done a lot of good for this angle, I must say. Renee Paquette interviewed Mercedes Moné, and they showed a clip of Momo Watanabe challenging Mercedes to a match for the TBS title at Revolution, to which Mercedes told her to show up and say it to her face. I don't think the result of that one will ever be in doubt, but I really hope the crowd in Los Angeles gets up for this match because it could end up being a show stealer on an already very stacked card. Megan Bayne then took on Chris Statlander, and while this was by no means a squash, this was a Megan Bayne showcase. Her spear stopped Chris Stat in her tracks, and I would challenge you to find a better German suplex in the women's division than the one we saw in this match. Penelope Ford pushed Chris Stat off the top rope behind the referee's back, which allowed Megan Bayne to hit the F5 for the win. Bit of a lame finish, but they did a good enough job during the match to put over Bayne strong that I think you can get away with it. What you can't get away with, however, was this mess of a post-match as Thunder Rosa made the save with a chair, but was what's going on here? Stop. Stop. Get out of here. Thunder Rosa made the save with a chair, but was determined not to hit anyone with it, which again wouldn't be a problem, but the heels wouldn't get the out of the ring. So instead you got that. Max Caster announced a new open challenge for Collision, and then we got an in-ring promo from Ricochet. He compared himself to Kevin Durant wanting to leave Phoenix, and to me there is no more heelish act that you can do than compare yourself to Kevin Durant. But it turns out that Ricochet is the real MVP of this week's episode because his promo was, dare I say, good. For someone who was considered to be the opposite of a promo guy throughout most of his career, you would never be able to tell from this one. He carried himself like a top star, and honestly, at this point, I don't think anyone could truthfully say that he isn't one. He was interrupted by just Prince Nana, who layered all the necessary backstory and significance upon the stolen robe, giving a nod to the late Jimmy Rave and saying that Ricochet was not bestowed the honor of being given that robe, but if Ricochet is who he always said he would be, to please just give the robe back. Ricochet told Nana, take it. And the sudden threat of violence had Nana trembling. I don't know where this is going to go besides another match between Ricochet and Swerve, but if they wanted to go the direction of Nana aligning with Ricochet because he has surpassed Swerve as AEW's most dangerous man, I think they're leaning into that very well. That's not even to say that they'll do it. It's just getting me to think. Then we had our main event as Orange Cassidy, complete with acid wash denim and Jane playing him to the ring, defeated Roderick Strong. Roddy attempted to play mind games as Kyle O'Reilly was caught in the middle of two factions, while Adam Cole had his negative history with Orange from 3 years ago. This was your standard high-level AEW TV main event, as both men traded their signature moves until the Orange Punch did Roddy in. After the match, Tony Schiavone was going to speak to Orange, but the Don Callis family attacked instead, with Mark Davis and Konosuke Takeshita double-teaming the new #1 contender, only for Kenny Omega to make the save and stand tall with the international title in hand. Man, I tell ya, the last few weeks of Dynamite and Collision have been a real return to form for AEW, and now with the Revolution card coming into focus, I think we could very easily be looking at the major show of the year for 2025. This pay-per-view is loaded, and with consistent top-notch TV and consistent hot crowds, it feels like AEW might finally be heating up. I love the variance in matches on this show, and I love the opening promo with every fiber of my being. A great show this was, and I shall give it a 4 out of 5. That just about wraps things up from me, but before I go, make sure that you check out Indeed this clip where Luke and I break down the 10 best Elimination Chamber performances of all time. I don't have a bit.